So, hi everybody. Welcome to the Business Unusual interview series inaugural episode. My name is Jessa Lux. I'm the community manager for a digital design company called Click Studios. And I also have the privilege of being the interviewer for these episodes. So, Business Unusual interview series grew out of a Business Unusual live conference that we hosted a couple of weeks ago. It was a 2-day conference. We had 36 incredible speakers and we got great feedback. So this is a result of that. And these will be just 10 to 15-minute interviews that seek to get insight and perspective from really smart business leaders. And we'll talk about things like how to communicate both internally and externally during this time, the role that digital is playing, and engaging with customers now that everything is virtual. And my first interviewee is Harsh Patel, the CEO of Galvanize. And Harsh, I know you are incredibly busy, not just now, but always. So thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me today.
Absolutely, you got it.
So if you wouldn't mind, would you give me a little bit of background about yourself and about Galvanize for anybody who might not be familiar?
Yeah, for sure. Background about myself. Oh man, I started my career as a teacher,
Wow.
fifth grade and eighth grade, and worked my way into tech after that in programming and whatnot. And then started a company that was then acquired by another company, and ultimately led to where I am today at Galvanize. And what Galvanize essentially, back in the day, started as a co-working space in Denver, and over time has added different components to it, including a coding school and now a lot of enterprise education work that we do. So at the end of the day, we basically help people and companies level up in their data science and software engineering needs, and create a community for that on all of our campuses for companies that are looking to hire talent, and for talent that's looking to learn new skills to join companies that are within Galvanize.
Yeah, that's great. And I know firsthand that Galvanize is incredible because the company that I work for, Click, is a customer of Galvanize. We office out of your space both in Denver and in Austin. I was just telling you, you have an incredible team there. So I'm grateful to know of Galvanize myself. Do you mind specifying the different business lines that Galvanize has?
Yeah, for sure. So there's three, actually hot off the presses. About a month ago, we turned it into four. But the first is co-working, as you know, and we call that community, where it's co-working and events. We run a ton of events to get people in the community. And then the second is consumer education, where we teach people software engineering and data science. And the software engineering work comes from our brand Hack Reactor, and the data science work comes from Galvanize, obviously. And the third business is enterprise education, where we go out to big Fortune 500, 100 companies and upskill their existing software engineering and data science talent, or help bring in new talent for them. And then the fourth one that we recently, it's pretty nascent now, but is fast growing, is our military education, where we're becoming essentially a top choice for the Air Force and the military and the Department of Defense for educating a lot of the active duty personnel, and turning them into better software engineers and data scientists too.
That's incredible. I was thinking about, as a leader, you have more considerations than most because there's kind of a variety of business lines there. Obviously, there's a clear through line, but it's a really interesting, that's why I was so excited to have this conversation. One of the things that I'm curious to hear from you that I've just enjoyed learning from other leaders is, so at Click, we have some culture building things in place that we had pre-COVID, things like a First Friday celebration where we give each other shout outs and celebrate launches and just enjoy each other's company. We have a kickstart with all hands every Monday. And those things are even more appreciated now that we're fully digital, for just keeping connected as a team. Do you have anything like that in place at Galvanize that was already in place pre-COVID and exists now during COVID, or things that you've chosen to put in place for that purpose?
So I think we're a little fortunate on that front. We have been teaching live online classes for a long time. And so like this idea of a remote workplace is within our culture and within our DNA already. And a lot of those things just became amplified because of COVID. So, some examples are like silly things like in our Slack channels, someone created a channel called #coworkers, and it's their pets that are now being annoying or fun or whatever. And you just take pictures and you share them. So, the use of fun channels like that, where you otherwise might have started a meeting with an interesting story or something, or like just pass someone in the hallways to tell them something funny. That's happening through the Slack channels now. That's one of them. The thing we did most recently was invite everyone, whoever they're quarantined up with, whether it's pets, family, kids, whatever. We just wanted to make it feel okay for people to know and understand that we're all in a weird spot. It's cool if your kid is running across the background or your cat is coming up in front of the camera. Like, it's totally fine, and make that acceptable across the company to allow that and not have to like push your kids away or whatever, because it's just the reality of what we're all dealing with.
I love that.
Yeah, so we started doing that. And it's like, I think it's important to have a culture of like videos always on, and it's okay whatever's going on in the background. Because that makes it not awkward, and it just like reduces all the distractions that you might have.
Totally. I actually wrote a newsletter this past month for Click that was kind of in that same vein, talking about how I see like people's partners drop a cup of coffee off for them, or kids jump in their lap. And it's like really beautiful to see everyone working as a team together, because we all are in this like together. We're all doing this. So that's great that you've just been explicit with people about that.
Yeah, for sure. And then, frankly, the other part of it is just having strong leaders. Like, there's no way that I myself, as one single leader of a company, can have that culture permeate. But we have, local leaders, we have department leaders. We just have I think we do a really good job of putting good leaders in good spots, who then take that upon themselves to organize that Friday evening or Friday, right after work happy hour, or a game night or something that gets people to feel, at least in their local communities, like they've got a workplace that they can still see and feel and hear.
Totally. Yeah, it's really special to see those things happening organically. And I think everyone's like hungry for it. So makes it a little bit easier for sure.
Yep.
So the next question I have for you is, has Galvanize, and it might just be a specific business line, but have you pivoted to accommodate COVID?
Absolutely. We've done things differently in every one of the business lines. Co-working in particular, like that's the big one, right? Like co-working is all physical. And I'll be honest, like we've taken a pretty significant hit in terms of revenue on that one business line, because it's just the reality that, if people aren't coming in, part of what you're paying for is a physical space. And if you're not using it, we've actually started doing proactive discounts, and we've been really hearing members when they say, hey, like I need to pause this month, or I need to not do this at all because my business has totally gone away. So we've just been really understanding of our different community members and trying to find a solution that's going to work for them. But then the cool thing that came out of that is virtual membership, where people still wanted a place to have mail come and have like an actual address. And so we've launched a virtual membership product where you can have a dedicated place to get mail, to register your company. We'll scan that mail for you and send it over and shred it if you don't want it. And you can partake in all the virtual membership that we've been doing. So like, educational courses that are across the country, or mentorship programs for different startups and entrepreneurs. And so a lot of very interesting, innovative things have come out of a virtual co-working environment, which is really interesting.
Yeah, that's incredible. And it kind of takes a time like this to make it happen, or
no chance we would have come up with that otherwise.
Yeah. Do you think that or other things that you've used during this time? Do you think it has staying power?
I think so. I don't think all of it will, but I think some of it definitely has staying power. One clear example is we created a national mentorship program where it's not just about whether if you're in a co-working space in Denver, it's not just meeting other mentors in Denver, but if there's a mentor across our network across the country, putting you in contact with them, and you can meet virtually and whatnot. So that one is for sure gonna stay because it's been so popular. Like so many people have been like, this literal connection was worth my monthly fee essentially that I paid Galvanize. And so it just had this like really awesome value add that, maybe we would have gotten around to it eventually, but we didn't. We just like did it immediately here, and it's gonna stay for sure.
That is really cool. I've kind of been realizing that in my own role too. I host a lot of events and try to bring smart people like you to an audience, and that's always been in person until now. And now I'm not geographically limited, and it didn't need to take this for that to happen, but it certainly has like broadened my horizons as well. So
Sure.
I can relate to that one.
And then, going back to your question, like on the education side, everything we do is online now. Like all of our courses are live online. Even our work with enterprise teams, all of it is live online. Like we had enterprise engagements in Germany, in Saudi Arabia, like all across the world. And we just pulled everyone back. And now we're delivering those same engagements without any sort of hiccup online. And those clients are like, holy cow, like this is actually working really effectively. Let's just keep it this way. So I think, a lot of that is going to have staying power. Of course, I think there still is value in in-person communication and in-person interaction. So, I don't think every company on the planet is going to go, fully remote even after they can go back on site, but it certainly will help.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Kind of the side effects that, especially the positive ones, are great to hear about.
Yeah.
One question that I have, and it kind of is in terms of an answer that you just gave. You were talking about, speaking to companies or individuals on a case-by-case basis and learning from them what they need. So I want to learn from you how you're approaching communication to your customers, because obviously there's a ton of information, but that doesn't mean there's less uncertainty necessarily. So how are you approaching external communication?
So I actually think that external communication, our approach has been to start that internally. So we started meeting every week and created our own central communication about what we're going to be saying externally to different customers, different stakeholders. And so we started meeting people. We started meeting weekly to go through that, and then daily after that. And so we essentially, put ourselves in all of our customer shoes. We've got so many different types of customers, and we just say, what would we want to know? And we get ahead of that by planning for it in our weekly calls or in our daily calls, and just be very like upfront. And I think one of the things that we're really proud of is like, we created a framework for messaging, where like, hey, for all of our co-working folks, it's like, there is going to be these levels of operation for Galvanize. Like we're at level 2 right now. We might get to 4 or 5, but we're not there yet. Okay, next week we're at level 3. Okay, next week we're at level 4. And then soon we're back to level 3. And so like having like a framework for communicating all of the things of like, there's a bucket. If you're in level 4, it means this. If you're in 3, it means this. And just moving across that. And the other kind of principle we've applied is, the most important communication comes from me, so that our customers know that it's important to us. And then the more specific communication comes from whoever the customer has a relationship with. And that's not me in most cases. And so we just got really deliberate about who will be communicating to what groups of people.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think that's a smart approach, and I hadn't heard it explicitly explained like that. But knowing your team at the campus that I office out of, I think that would be really effective.
Yeah, like you hearing from those 3 people, you're gonna listen more than an email from me. But if you do see an email from me, you're going to be like, oh, this is something that Galvanize as a company is doing. So you kind of have to have a balance of both of those.
Totally. Yeah, that's really interesting. In a similar vein, I learned that you do one-on-one interviews with your employees as a way to kind of inform your decisions and just keep your finger on the pulse about what's going on in the various parts of your business. Are
Yep.
you soliciting feedback from customers right now to inform your decision making, or how are you keeping customers engaged?
So each of our, again, it goes back to that individual relationship that a customer has. So I am not reaching out to our customers directly to get feedback. What I'm doing is making sure that whoever has the relationship with the customer is doing that and writing it and sending it to me, so that any decisions we make as a company they're not tone deaf to what our customers actually need. So, it still routes through the person that has a relationship. And it's important that everyone that works at Galvanize feels like they can send me an email or a Slack message or something, so that whatever the customers are saying can actually get to me. But there's no way that I'm going to be able to effectively gather that information directly from customers.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And it's inspiring on both ends, both internally and externally. I think a lot of companies aren't soliciting that sort of information, and you can tell when they are. So I have a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
One is, so you said that you've pivoted across your business lines. What do you see as a risk in your pivot strategy, and are you hedging that?
Good question. I'm going to be open and honest and a little vulnerable here. I don't think we're hedging against anything right now. I think we are doing our best to stay in front of information and in front of decisions, but it's really hard to place bets on what's going to happen 3 months from now or 6 months from now. And I think that's okay. As long as we continue to have the mechanism of being able to pick up on it a week in advance, 2 weeks in advance. So one of the risks is that, on the education side, that one of the risks is that because everyone is online right now, for people who don't like online education, a risk is that they will forever decide they don't like online education, because we had 1 week to prepare to get them online, and that's not nearly as enough time to get them totally addressing any concerns that they might have. Same goes on the co-working side. Another risk is that people don't want to come back to co-working after they've had a chance to work from home. And I wouldn't say we're hedging against that risk, other than really thinking about providing value for people to come back. And it might be a different set of offerings than before, but fundamentally, I don't think we're hedging anywhere. I think we're just doing and listening to our customers for what they want. And as long as we continue to deliver something that our customers want, I think we'll be fine in the long term.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And it's kind of similar to something I heard at the Business Unusual conference, which was advice like, don't be planning too far ahead because nobody knows.
Yeah.
So do what you can with the information you have, but things are changing, and just acknowledge that that's the case for a while.
Yeah.
As far as people not wanting to go back to co-working spaces, I think working from home is fine, but I told you a few people on your team at Platt that I love, and I'm excited to go back just to see them. So I think a lot of people might feel similarly. I am really excited to eventually get back there when we can. But my last question for you is, what advice do you give people, or have you heard, that was relevant prior to this time and is especially relevant in this time? And this is a question that I'm going to ask everybody that I interview.
Yeah, I think making sure that you know exactly what the customer feels and wants has never been more important, and making sure that employees feel comfortable sending constructive criticism up the chain has never been more important. Because the last thing you want to do is make a decision that's going to fall on deaf ears to your customers or for your employees because you're out of touch with what they actually care about.
That is great advice. And everything that I heard is really, really fascinating and exactly the conversation that I was hoping that we would have. Other than the technical difficulties, which were all on my side. I think I have a bit of a bad connection here and the dog barking, but that's kind of today's reality.
That's how it is.
Yeah, thank you so much for rolling with it. And thank you again for sharing your advice on taking the time.
You got it. And another fun thing that I've started doing is these virtual backgrounds, as you can see.
Yeah, I love it.
And I like to take people through a tour of my house.
Oh my God, it's beautiful.
Exactly.
So many different styles.
I know. And then take them back to the reality.
I love it.
Anyway, you got to keep it fun somehow.
Totally. Yeah, that's great. My a partner at Click has been screenshotting our clients' offices and putting it behind him as if he's in their office and just waiting for them to notice. Which
that's brilliant.
I find really entertaining. Yeah. So
I gotta start doing that.
If you want. Yeah. All right, Harsh. Well, thank you again. Thank you for being my very first interviewee. It'll be a hard one to follow.
You got it. Let me know how else I can help.
Thanks.